Bellator versus Rizin 2 this Saturday night from the Saitama Arena over there in Saitama, Japan. Only 5 fights on this card, and it's weird because it's basically just a Bellator card in Japan. The only exception being the fight, of course, for the flyweight championship, or for the vacant flyweight championship between Kyoji Horiguchi and Makoto Shinryu. Shinryu being a fighter from Rizin, and he's the only Rizin guy on this card. It's interesting that this is how it's going. There's another Rizin card featuring the likes of Juan Archuleta, but that isn't technically the Bellator card. The Bellator card with only 5 fights late this Saturday night from Japan. The main event, of course, being in the Lightweight World Grand Prix between AJ McKee and Pitbull. And the way it's looking right now for Bellator, I doubt there's many cards left, like in the history of Bellator, because it seems to me like they're getting bought out. Will it be by either PFL? I doubt it'll be the UFC. It'll likely be the PFL. What do they do with Bellator from here? I really don't know, because you have Grand Prix started that are ended. You have a bunch of world champions. I don't know what's going to go on with Bellator, but for now, we've got this card scheduled. We've got a card from Sioux Falls, South Dakota, coming in August, between the main event being between Logan Storley and Brennan Ward, and then you've got a fight card in Ireland in September between Fabian Edwards and Johnny Eblen for the middleweight championship. That's all Bellator's got scheduled for now. I don't know if there's going to be any more, but we'll do this card, Bellator versus Rizin 2, with only one Rizin fighter on the card. And folks, if you haven't yet though, make sure that subscribe button down below for more Bellator and more MMA here on the channel. Yesterday we posted our UFC 291 predictions with Justin Gaethje and Dustin the Diamond Poirier in the main event. Our first fight will be between Larkin and Andrei Koreshkov at 170 pounds. We go into this fight looking at Larkin, the favorite. Larkin, 55% on Tapology for his opponent, and Koreshkov, 26-4, but the underdog coming back at you for Larkin picked up a big knockout finish in his last fight over Magomedov Burkmahov, winning that fight by first round knockout in February of this year. And for Larkin, man, 7-2 so far in Bellator. Of course, he had his 2 losses in the promotion. When he started fighting in Bellator after leaving the UFC, he lost to Douglas Lima and Paul Daly back-to-back, but since then, it has been nothing but wins for Larkin. He gets another opportunity here against a guy in Koreshkov who has won his last 4 fights, 2 of them being in Bellator, but his last one being in Shlemenko FC. It has been over a year, though, since Koreshkov has last fought, and that's why I'm going to be taking Larkin to win this fight. Of course, Koreshkov's a good guy, a really good fighter who, of course, fought Ben Askren for the welterweight championship back in 2013. He has been around, has Koreshkov. He was the former Bellator world champion, of course, when he beat Douglas Lima, then beat Benson Henderson, then dropped it again to Lima a couple fights after. But Koreshkov has been around. I'm riding the high right now of Larkin. Larkin's been really good recently. Really like the power. I think Larkin goes to Japan and picks up a first-round knockout victory to start off this card. Next up, we will have a fight here between Danny Sabatello and Magomedov Mustafayev. Magomedov. Here at the 135-pound weight division for Danny Sabatello. This is a guy who we saw on a huge run, of course, winning fights that maybe weren't the most entertaining, per se, between, Brett Johns, Jornal Lugo, Leandro Higo. They weren't the greatest of fights, but they got him a chance at the Bellator Championship. He lost to Raufeon Stotts by split decision in a fight that should definitely not have been a split decision. Although it's pretty obvious that Raufeon Stotts picked up the win over the Italian gangster in Sabatello. Then they booked Sabatello in his last fight against Marcus Breno. He submits him in the second round by rear naked choke. One of the rare finishes that Sabatello is going to get. He's obviously a tremendous wrestler, really good grappler. Will you see Sabatello get many finishes? No, that's usually not the case. Now he's going to be taking on a guy here in Magomedov who finds himself coming off another loss, losing to Patchy Mix. Now, is that a bad loss? No, because Patchy Mix, what have we seen out this guy? Mix is a guy who, after that Magomedov fight, went on to beat Raufeon Stotts. And will we see Patchy Mix ever fight Sergio Pettis? I don't know. Maybe it'll be in PFL. Who knows? But Patchy makes, of course, back-to-back wins. And, before the Magomedov fight, a win over Kyoji Horiguchi by decision. The guy won the Grand Prix, and now he will be fighting for the World Championship, for the undisputed World Championship. But Mix went in there and finished Magomedov in the second round with the guillotine choke. In between Magomedov's 2 losses to Mix and Stotts. Of course, he lost to Stotts by unanimous decision. He won a fight over Enrique Barzola. This fight is going to come down to who the better grappler is, obviously. The wrestling game out of both guys are really good. Sabatello's a really good wrestler. He's really good at keeping top control. He's really good at, in all fairness, laying on his opponents. But Magomedov is good at that as well. He's a good wrestler. Of course, only though 3-2 in Bellator. It's an interesting fight. It really is. I think, the odds are going to be pretty even on this one. I'm going to take Danny Sabatello because I haven't been all that impressed with Magomedov recently. That's where we're going to take Sabatello by decision. Again, Magomedov has been put in bad positions given by very good fighters, but Sabatello is a really good fighter too. And Danny Sabatello's only loss is to Raufeon Stots, and that's a good loss. And Stots is a guy, I know we're not playing MMA math, you don't like to play MMA math like this, but Raufeon Stots has beat Magomedov in the past. I'm going to take Danny Sabatello to win. I think he's able to execute on his takedowns. I think he's able to keep top positioning. I think he's able to honestly just kind of lay on Magomedov. I don't think Magomedov is going to be able to do much because of the top control and the pressure that Danny Sabatello does put on you. It's constant pace, it's constant pressure. It's not the most entertaining style of fight by any stretch of the imagination, but I still think the Italian gangster Danny Sabatello goes out there and picks up a victory here in Japan by unanimous decision. Okay, our next fight will come in the women's flyweight division. We've got a fight here between the heavy favorite and Kana Watanabe. She'll be taking on the 7-5 Veda Arteaga. This fight's pretty self-explanatory. We're going to be going with Kana Watanabe to win this fight. We're going to take her by unanimous decision. Watanabe is coming off that loss in her last fight to Ilima-Lei Macfarlane. Again, an interesting turn of events because Ilima-Lei Macfarlane was coming off a loss to Justine Kish, and Kish is not very good, but hey, for Macfarlane, she has won back-to-back fights to Bruna Ellen and then Watanabe in her last fight. Again, kind of shocked at that result. I picked Watanabe to win that fight. Of course, Macfarlane gets the nod by decision, but before that, for the 34-year-old Japanese fighter, Watanabe picked up a big win over Denise Kielholtz, submitting her by triangle choke in the second round, but then got a big fight in a fight where if she won, she was likely going to get a world championship fight against Liz Carmouche. Carmouche picked up her first finish in a very damn long time, finishing her with a standing TKO. Of course, just blitzing Watanabe and finishing her in 35 seconds on the feet. Now, that's great and all, but Watanabe is still 3-2 in Bellator. Really good all-around fighter. She can get it done on the ground, like you can see with her, her submission finish over Denise Kielholtz. She's not horrible on the feet either. She's taking on a fighter here, Veda Arteaga, who's coming off a loss to Sumiko Inaba, and I would put Kana Watanabe in a higher regard, or I would hold her in a higher regard than Sumiko Inaba. Inaba is only 6-0 and really has kind of been, handpicked by Bellator to be one of their rising stars. I would definitely take Kana Watanabe in a fight against Sumiko Inaba. For Veda Arteaga losing to Inaba in her last fight, she picked up back-to-back wins over Yanez and then Vanessa Porto after that. And the Porto win's a good win. It's a submission in the second round. But before those two wins, back-to-back losses, to Ilima-Lei Macfarlane and Alejandra Lara. Her biggest win to date, though, definitely the submission win over given a 2-1 Denise Kielholtz, but still back in 2018. That fight ages pretty well. And even her win over Emily Ducote back in 2018 ages pretty well as well. However, what have we seen recently out of Veda Arteaga? We've seen her get beat. Again, if Sumiko Inaba is able to do it, I think Kana Watanabe is definitely able to do it. Give me Watanabe to win this fight. She'll get it done by unanimous decision. On to our co-main event for the flyweight championship, the vacant flyweight championship, which I think is interesting for Bellator considering they're making a world championship and likely the promotion's getting squashed. It's getting folded. However, this will likely, and hey, in a perfect world, the PFL buys Bellator, and these two become a super promotion, and I hope the PFL can probably start running bigger venues, but if they get Bellator, they've got Francis Ngannou, they've got big stars, they can really be a viable second competitor to the UFC and Bellator, and Bellator/PFL, I think this is what they can do. They can do a season, and the guys who want to participate in the season can participate in the season, and then you have, then you basically just have, if they want to call it Bellator, so they call it Bellator, but just call it Bellator. And you have the Bellator guys fight in the PFL season. You can have the PFL guys who don't want to fight the season anymore. They can go fight Bellator, right? You can get the fight between Kayla Harrison and Chris Cyborg. I know Kayla Harrison just lost, but still, you can still get that fight, especially for Kayla Harrison who does not want to fight in that season format anymore. You can get guys like, random, but you can get like a Sadabu C. He doesn't have to, even though C kind of excels in that type of format. But you can get a guy like, Movlid Khabilev, who just, dropped out of the season for the PFL, and Chris Wade's going to take a spot against Gabriel Braga. You can have a guy like Khabilev fight not in the season, but go and fight Bellator when he wants to fight. I think it would benefit a lot of guys, and I think you can get interesting matchups. But hell, if you get this fight between Kyoji Horiguchi and his opponent here, Makoto Shinryu, the winner of this fight could be the sort of Bellator/PFL flyweight champion, considering the PFL does not have flyweight, and Bellator is now creating it right here. And this fight, again, it seems like it's a Kyoji Horiguchi victory, definitely by decision. I think Kyoji Horiguchi becomes the champion once more. And, Kyoji Horiguchi with definitely a storied career. He's only 32 years old, and the man keeps on picking up wins. But he's taking on just a young fighter. I mean, for Shinryu, this guy is 16-1-1. He's only 23 years old, coming off of his win earlier this year, 3 months ago, in Rizin by arm triangle choke in the second round. His biggest win may be that win in CFFC. Shout out to CM Punk on commentary for that fight. But he goes out there, beats Diego Paiva. He gets the submission in the 4th round. He wins the Cage Fury Flyweight Championship. But man, he is just taking on a tough out in Kyoji Horiguchi. Horiguchi, a multi-time world champion. The former Bellator Bantamweight champion. The former Rizin Bantamweight champion. And now he gets a shot at the Bellator Flyweight Championship, trying to add a 3rd world championship to his resume. It feels like it's going to happen. For Kyoji Horiguchi, his last fight was a win on Bellator versus Rizin 1. He wins a unanimous decision in that fight. That was at flyweight, and before that, he beat Yuto Hakamura by arm triangle choke in the 2nd round. Before that, though, had a little bit of a dry spell, lost back-to-back fights in Bellator, 2 Sergio Pettis for the World Championship, and then 2 Patchy Mix for the, of course, or in the Grand Prix. But now when you look at it, that fight that he was fighting against Sergio Pettis, he was winning until he got knocked out. And Patchy Mix is a tough out. Mix and Sergio Pettis are fighting for the undisputed Bellator Bantamweight Championship. Now Kyoji Horiguchi gets to fight at his actual weight class at 125, the same weight class that hell he fought in the UFC when he fought Demetrius Johnson for the World Championship. It's his actual weight class. He can go back to 125, and he gets a matchup that does favor him quite well. Shinryu, if he can't take Horiguchi down, it's going to be danger. And Horiguchi is not horrible at stuffing takedowns. He's pretty good at it. I don't think Shinryu is going to be able to take him down. I think it'll just be a one-sided beating for Kyoji Horiguchi. Horiguchi and new Bellator Flyweight Champion winning this fight by unanimous decision. On to our main event. I don't love this fight. I really don't, because I think it's really one-sided. AJ McKee first-round submission's the pick. I don't think this fight's close. I mean, obviously, McKee is fighting now the other Pitbull brother. Obviously, he had his 2 fights with Patricio. Now he gets Patricky. Patricky's coming off that dominant loss to Usman Magomedov for the World Championship by unanimous decision. And, like, in all fairness, Patricky Pitbull definitely lucked into winning the championship. Like, let's just play a spade for spade here. I mean, like, that's kind of how that went, right? Patricky loses back-to-back fights, loses to Peter Queally in a fight that he was definitely supposed to win, but then they get the vacant championship because Patricio gives up the lightweight world title. So then Patricky goes and fights Peter Queally for the belt. He wins, and then then they have to, he has to go fight Usman Nurmagomedov, and he loses. And now for Usman, this is a guy who had an outstanding victory over Benson Henderson in San Jose. I was at that fight. Question mark kick to the rear naked choke. Crazy 17-0, undefeated Usman Nurmagomedov. But again, for Patricky Pitbull, he's fighting a guy in AJ McKee who, is probably not the favorite to win the tournament because of Usman Nurmagomedov, but definitely is a close second because AJ McKee, again, this guy has lost 1 fight in his career. It was the decision loss to Patricio Pitbull. He thought he won the fight in San Jose. He definitely didn't. But of course, the biggest win of his career was that win in Inglewood over Patricio Pitbull, where he drops him, then he gets him with a guillotine choke and submits him. Since that loss to Patricio, though, a win over Spike Carlisle by unanimous decision. In all fairness, isn't the greatest. I mean, it's a win over Spike Carlisle, but it's like, who cares? And then he beats Roberto de Souza, which I thought was by far the toughest fight that any of the Bellator guys got on the Bellator versus Rizin 1 card. Of course, Bellator swept it 5-0. That was definitely the toughest fight a Bellator guy could have gotten. In Roberto de Souza, a tremendous jiu-jitsu player, a guy who's gone on to beat Spike Carlisle and Rizin after AJ McKee fought him. And AJ McKee, went in there, weathered the storm, won the fight by unanimous decision. A fight between AJ McKee, though, and Patricky Pitbull was not going to be close. It's not going to be close. McKee is going to be able to have his way whatever way he wants it. Does he want it on the ground? Does he want it on the feet? Any way possible. AJ McKee, who is 20-1 professionally and 21 in Bellator, is going to go on to win this fight. Patricky Pitbull, I just don't think stands a chance in this fight. I think AJ McKee completely melts him here. I think he's going to beat him on the feet. He's going to wobble him, and then AJ McKee is going to find a way to get a submission, and AJ McKee is going to advance to the 2nd round of the semifinals of the Bellator Grand Prix, which in all fairness, will it ever complete? I don't know, but for now, we have AJ McKee to beat Patricky Pitbull to close out the card here with this Bellator versus Rizin 2 card from Japan. So folks, thank y'all for watching our Bellator predictions here on the channel. If you haven't yet though, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy the video. We'll be back in 2 weeks for that Bellator card in South Dakota, and then next week we'll be back for not just the UFC Nashville card between Corey Sandhagen and Rob Font, but also PFL playoff time. Really pumped for that card. That is a stacked and loaded 4-fight playoff card. In the light heavyweight division, you have got Impa Kasanganai taking on Martin Hamlet, and you also have Josh Silveira taking on Ty Flores. Okay, but then also big fights, and I mean huge fights, at 145 pounds. In the main event, Bubba Badman Jenkins takes on Jesus Pineda, who knocked out the reigning champion Brendan Loughnane to get a shot at the World Championship. And also Chris Wade steps in on short notice for Movlid Khabilev to take on Gabriel Braga. It is a loaded PFL card next week, and I'm really excited for it. The first of 3 straight playoff cards for the Professional Fighters League. So folks, thank y'all for watching. Make sure that subscribe button down below for more, and Mamba forever.